Hi, this is Jason from Horrific Nightmares. Welcome back to my top 20 for 2020. I wanted to thank everyone who's participated, especially Joe the Horror Man, who helped me come up with this idea. Now, this is 80s horror, definitely my favorite decade for horror, and I didn't want it to be slasher heavy, so you will be seeing some of my other favorite movies in here, as well as some classic slashers. Without further ado, let's get started. Coming in at number 20 is The Lost Boys. Now, this probably wouldn't have been on my list last year, but after watching it recently, I kind of discovered a new love for this film. Not the biggest vampire fan, but this is just a good movie. Plain and simple, with a great cast. That's number 20, The Lost Boys. Coming in at number 19, The Deadly Spawn. Definitely one of my favorite creature features. I wanted to thank Sean Blue Digital for actually introducing me to this. I have always heard about this film, but never watched it until he had mentioned something about it. So thank you, Sean. And this is number 19, The Deadly Spawn. Fantastic creature feature on a budget. Coming in at number 18 is Pet Sematary. Another one that may not have been on my list last year, but after watching it recently, I'm up and down on this movie. I think the story's great. I love how mean-spirited it is, but I don't really care for the mom's acting, and I've seen her in other things, and she's kind of the same in every movie. But, it is what it is. Still a great film. Definitely a classic. And that's Pet Sematary. Coming up next is Fright Night. Another vampire film in my top 20. Fright Night is great. Always been one of my favorites. I love the werewolf in it. Chris Sarandon's a great actor. I love the homage it plays to Hammer movies. It's just a fantastic film. And that's Fright Night. Coming up next is Stage Fright, our first slasher of the evening. This movie is just great. I love the mask. I love just about everything about it. How people are being killed off when they're trying a Broadway production or a stage play. Just a really cool, very tense atmosphere. And that is Stage Fright. All right. Coming up next is my favorite from Dario Argento, and that is Opera. This movie is incredibly mean-spirited and just an awesome, awesome giallo. Definitely my favorite by him, and just a fantastic movie. And that's Opera. Coming in at number 14 is one of the most underrated movies on this list, and that is Pin. Now, I spoke a little bit about this film when I was doing my entry for Horror and Taj. This movie is great. It's one of the best in the 80s, in my opinion, and it's an awesome psychological horror movie. Definitely great. We do need a Blu-ray of this, so yeah. Coming up next is House by the Cemetery. This is my favorite Fulci film. It's a fun slasher, well, kind of supernatural slasher. It's very violent and very cool. The only thing that probably keeps it from the top 5 is Bob. And I'm sure everyone who's seen it knows Bob's voice. It's horrible. Coming up next, My Bloody Valentine. This has always been a favorite of mine. This was one of the first slasher movies I saw way back when, and has always been, like I said, a favorite. The atmosphere is great in the mine. The killer's outfit is awesome. Just a great movie, telling a great story. Definitely one of the better slashers out there. Coming up at number 11 is The Fog. This movie is fantastic. I don't really know what to classify this as. A ghost story? a supernatural slasher. Definitely one of John Carpenter's best. I think that's how I'll classify it. But The Fog is just unbelievable. Alright, guys, we've cracked into the top 10. And coming up at number 10 is Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Now, this movie used to be my favorite horror movie of all time. But I think I like the cheesiness of it, the soundtrack, the acting in it, the clowns, the way the clowns look. It's just pretty much the whole package. Fantastic movie. Killer Clowns coming in at number 10. Coming up at number 9 is The Evil Dead. Now, I'm sure this will be higher up on some lists. This is pretty much where it falls for me. I love this movie. I've watched it so many times. I probably know the entire dialogue. So, yeah. Evil Dead, classic horror. And my favorite of the franchise, because it is actually creepy. Coming up next, Halloween 2. Definitely one of my favorite sequels, and just a great film. And this is the copy that has Terror in the Aisles, which, as I'm doing this video, it's been announced on Scream Factory. I don't know how they managed that one, but it'd be nice to have a Blu-ray of it, even though it's a special feature on this Blu-ray. And it looks good. Alright, coming up next, Maniac. Don't really know what else to say about this one, other than it's incredibly mean-spirited. It's a gritty, grimy look at early 80s New York, and even though Joe Spinell has had a lot of great roles, this is my favorite from him. Would love to have seen him get sober and really crank out some more horror movies, especially Maniac 2. But that'll never happen. Alright, coming up next, one of my favorite anthologies of all time is Creepshow. This movie is just awesome. Don't really know what else to say about it. My favorite story on here is Something to Tide You Over. I know a lot of people choose The Crate. Some people choose Father's Day. But Something to Tide You Over is definitely my favorite. But to be honest, I don't really think there's a weak story on here. And that's what makes it great. And that is number 6, Creepshow. Alright guys, the top 5. And coming in at number 5 is The Shining. Another movie I don't really know how to classify. I mean, it is a stalk and slash, but it's more of a ghost story. Or a supernatural slasher. Don't really know how to classify it. Other than the fact that it's a fantastic movie. Yeah. The Shining is awesome, and I love it. And it is number 5. Coming up, number 4 is The Fly. David Cronenberg is a master of horror, and he definitely shows it on The Fly. One of my favorite movies of all time, a movie that I saw twice in the theaters, and loved every minute of it. And that is number 4, The Fly. Coming in at number 3 is The Thing. This movie is just brilliant. There aren't many remakes that surpass the original, and this one does it and doesn't even look back. It's just a fantastic movie, and John Carpenter is an incredible director. Always has been, and in my opinion, always will be. The Thing is amazing. And that's why it's number 3. Number 2 shouldn't be a big surprise to anyone that knows me, and that is Happy Birthday to Me. I find this movie to be incredible. It was my first horror film, technically. I mean, I guess Godzilla's horror, but This is my first slasher movie, and it blew me away. I think the story is brilliant. I don't think it's boring at all, and there's some people say that, but I don't find it to be boring at all. And it's just great. Has that giallo feel to it. Fantastic film, and a really, really tricky ending. And that is Happy Birthday to Me, coming in at number 2. Which leaves number 1. This probably is not a surprise either, but it is Friday the 13th Part 2. Like I said, I tried to limit the number of slashers that I put on this list, but I didn't want to forsake slashers for my favorite movies. So these are actually my favorites, and some slashers had to go on there, and this is my favorite of the 80s. Friday the 13th Part 2 is a perfect sequel. Actually, one of the ones that's better than the original, in my opinion. Has a great final girl and Baghead Jason. What more can you ask for? And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed my list. And if you like what you see in here, click that like button and subscribe. And until next time, peace.